right, so we realized that the conversation we were having was a gold mine for some people potentially, and so now we're going to try and rewind back through it without it sounding mechanical. So the question that was before us, we have a dog in our program right now who refuses to eat. She's offered meals at both ends of every day. She's offered a ton of really good training rewards, and a lot of the time she chooses not to eat. Most people would describe her as very stubborn. That was a word that you used, and I hesitate to use that word because
stubborn,
I don't,
or even anxious.
Yeah, I don't like labels. She tends to lock up when something is presented to her as required that she doesn't really think she wants to do, and so she will lock and resist the leash, resist manual being repositioned manually. She will not lure to food because she doesn't want it, or she acts like she doesn't want it. And so the question comes up this morning is like, do we think there's dominance issues? And I think there is a small degree of that. Caveat, we'll talk about what I mean by dominance. But my resistance to labeling things is that it's not necessary to try to pigeonhole a dog's behavior into this dog's stubborn, this dog's dominant, this dog, is unmotivated. Any of those things or all of those things can be true, but the answer, like we were talking about, it's the same. We want the dog to feel good. We want the dog to enjoy the training process. And the problem with that is a dog can't imagine a future they haven't experienced. Their imagination, I don't believe, works that way. They can be afraid of unknown, but they don't consent to something that's going to happen because they can envision what we're thinking and talking about. They just can't do that. So they base their choices on instinct, genetics, and their past experience that they can remember. This worked out this way for me, so I'm going to respond in this way. That's the general operant conditioning model for learning. Is I'm presented with these choices. If these choices align with a certain outcome that's favorable or unfavorable, then I'll choose the ones that are the most favorable. Okay? So when you have a dog who doesn't want the food, and this dog we're talking about has lost a little bit of weight while she's been here, even though on both ends of her day she's offered a full meal of good high calorie food. We've done different things to try to appetize her in that regard. We're not trying to existential feed this dog. That would be a bad idea when a dog is like, I don't feel good enough in this situation to eat training rewards. They're just going to feel like garbage if they don't eat enough. And I think that's part of her issue is
I agree.
Because she is kind of out of her element. She's refused enough food that she just doesn't feel good, and we don't want that. We want her to eat. So there comes a point where we're like, well, how good do we have to make the food? How much do we have to change the dog's surroundings? Because for whatever reason in this scenario, the normal pattern we have of we get up at 6, 7 in the morning, get the dogs going. If they get a first training session, their breakfast might be the training session, but that's not every dog in the sequence because they'd have to wait too long. So depending on whether she goes first or not, she might get her breakfast in a bowl or out of the training pouch. And she doesn't eat it. And it doesn't matter that it's the good stuff. Then when you bring out what we think of as high value treats, things like that during a training session, she turns her nose up at. She won't eat more than 2 or 3 in an hour or 2 of work. And she's very resistant to the work and kind of shuts down with any kind of pressure. So it's like,
can I jump in and tell you when she has eaten an entire bag of treats? So the only time I have gotten her to a point where she was enthusiastically working and wanting to eat and searching for the food was when I taught her to jump. So I set up that little red line canine jump just really low, and I kind
not a paid promotion.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah.
But I got her to use her kind of like crazy fluffy dog
like,
energy.
email me, Redline.
I know, right?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. So you're having her chase a toy, essentially.
Yeah, but what she loved was movement.
Yeah.
And she loved feeling crazy and running.
Well,
and
she gets the
jumping.
zoomies like crazy when she does get excited.
And I found that has been the only way that I could, at least in a more good feeling, rewarding way, shape the behaviors I want. 9 flats.
By the way, this is not the dog we're talking about. This is Falk.
Flats.
Falk's a German Shepherd. We're talking about a large Bernedoodle.
Yeah. But that was like the most productive training session I ever had with her. Was when she was flopping around like a happy Muppet, and then I was like, okay, now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah, now she feels good,
yeah,
right?
She feels
now
good.
we see what we always talk about this. We call it baseline behavior. Like, what does the dog do? How do they act? How motivated are they when they feel good?
Yeah.
Okay. So the other thing I noticed when one of her owners comes to class, because that's an option for people who do board and train with us, is they can come weekly to a obedience class. We bring their dog out. They work their dog on the stuff their dog's working on, and she's a different dog with someone she likes. You know, she's a different dog when her person is on the leash. Now the other thing that has been a challenge. That wind is going to make this recording sound terrible. The other thing that's been a challenge is one of the owners is diplomatic, older, and really needs for this dog not to pull. Like, it is essential for this dog to function in this home that she does not pull on the leash. And this dog is a very resistant to the leash dog on any tool. From harness to prong collar, all the whole spectrum, she's very resistant. And her motivation tanks when she feels that leash.
To a point where she will literally hurt herself too.
Oh yeah, she throws herself against the leash at maximum velocity. Suddenly, she'll be like standing still, and then all of a sudden just blah, I can't think of take you back to the 90s. It's probably if this dates me, but there's a show called Mad TV, and there was a sketch on that show with a kid named Stuart, and he would like spaz out and Stuart, look what I can do, and he would like kind of do these weird dance moves. And that's this dog, when she gets in that mode, is kind of like kicks her feet out like a bucking horse.
Yeah. She'll throw a massive tantrum.
Yeah, she jumps at the point where she's going to hit the leash. And it doesn't matter what the tool is, she's jumping, she kicks her feet in there, she practically does a forward flip. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes, because you're standing still and the leash tension has arrived just at the wrong time, she like gets pulled midair and lands on her side, or lands awkwardly, and it's bad. She's going to hurt herself, she's going to hurt a person. So it's like, typically what we would want to do is shape behaviors with food rewards and lures, get the dog doing the right stuff, get him feeling good about doing the right stuff, get those things to be really highly reinforced. This is just normal training process. Get them highly reinforced so that they're very likely, and then if there's stuff the dog's doing that we don't want, we use pressure with the leash to keep them from doing that stuff, and communication to tell them that they can't do it before the leash input arrives. Excuse me. We use the leash before that bad behavior arrives, help them, and if at some point they still make that choice to continue to do that behavior, we've used communication telling them the leash input's on the way, and then we use the leash so that in the future we get a classical conditioning effect to our communication that tells the dog, hey, this equals leash. Don't do that.
Good.
And it works. The challenge is when a dog doesn't want anything, but they absolutely shut down with the leash. And that's where we're at kind of with this dog. So she gets a ton of work, but it's typically very short sessions that are productive, because it's like, oh, you went over there when I wanted you to go over here, the leash stopped you. And
I feel like her stress builds so fast.
Oh yeah.
To a point where you can't do anything with her after 1 or 2 times of having to correct her.
Yep.
Because then she's done. makes it really hard.
You know, this is a function of suppression we talk about a lot, right? When a dog gets any form of stress, but the leash tends to do this, right? You know, the chemical processes that happen when the dog gets stressed, at one end of the spectrum, we have these dogs who absolutely shut down, which is where she's at. Yeah. At the other end of the spectrum, we have dogs, you know, you can think Belgian Malinois, right? They get tugged on the leash a couple times, they're like, yeah, let's go, and they're jumping and bouncing at the end of the leash, and you can't focus them anymore. So it's like, kind of, like we're dealing with like a far end of the spectrum suppressive stressor. So it's a challenge as a dog trainer. Like, you know, the right answer is get the dog feeling good, and our discussion really, that's like the foundation of the discussion is, now what is the reason, and without trying to pigeonhole and label things, how do we make progress for this dog and stay true to our philosophy at the same time? Because, you know, over pressuring a dog, especially who shuts down on pressure, isn't in our plan. And at the same time, we feel an obligation to the client to make progress. So that's the discussion. That's a constant discussion when we have what we think of as a more challenging dog. And I'm not talking about a dog who challenges us necessarily. I'm talking about a dog who presents behavior that is at the far end of the spectrum, either side, on this same topic.
That it endangers her own safety.
Yeah,
or health,
for sure. Yeah.
Which is the problem.
Yeah, because like at a certain point, if you're walking this dog down the sidewalk and she spazzes out like that, and there's traffic, like when she's with her owner,
she can't hold on to her.
The owner's going to have to choose not to hang on to not be injured.
Yeah.
And in that case, the dog's going to be loose in traffic. Mm-hmm. You know, so I mean, that's a management problem besides a training problem. It's like, yeah. So that is the foundation for the discussion that we're having about dominance, reluctance from the dog in training, from any dog in training, and kind of the deeper thought process of challenging dogs. And like I said, there are dogs that are challenging on this entire spectrum. And the one nice thing I would say about this dog, she's actually a sweetheart.
She's a good girl.
She's a nice dog. Mm-hmm. That's actually really to our benefit as trainers, is while she shuts down from being stressed by a situation or by the work, she has extremely high degree of bite inhibition. Good. So, you know, some dogs where if they even got a fraction of the amount of stress that she acts like she's experiencing from stuff that virtually every dog that we work with would not be stressed by. Yeah. But she's, yeah, we'd expect, like if I had these things happen with a typical German Shepherd, where a dog showed that they were this stressed by being handled and moved around and asked to do something, they tend to not have as much bite inhibition.
Exactly.
And we're intentional not to give our protection dogs as much bite inhibition. They still develop bite inhibition with their people, but it's kind of a different thing. And that's kind of the point, is we're not her people.
Yeah.
Right. So she got at least an aspect, I think, genetically of, I don't bite people. Mm-hmm. I don't think I'm supposed to do that.
No, she does not solve problems with her mouth, thankfully.
Yeah. And so her tendency is to kind of shut down and internalize and freeze and resist rather than lash out and go forward. So, and we're not doing things that would be worthy of being bit.
On her back.
Yeah. A touch.
Tension on a slip lead.
Yeah.
and she'll just baby deer lock up.
Oh yeah.
And then you put more on, she locks up even harder. Massive opposition reflex.
Oh yeah. And not just that, but whole body like rigor. Like she is like all bored and you can't move her.
Well, then it's the problem of how far do you push her?
Yeah, and that's the thing is
without
we're being
quitting and letting her get the idea that that worked.
Yeah.
That's the line that's hard to.
It's always and that's the line we got to working on down this last week was
I
like
remember that.
I didn't put any pressure on her, but I didn't give her leash per se, and she kind of like, well, if I can't lift my head above neutral, like I'm gonna throw a fit. And I'm like, I didn't put any pressure on you, but she's like, well, I'm gonna jump up against because I've realized that the leash is even there, and so it was like, okay, I'm gonna sit here. We're gonna wait the 10 minutes. We got the down, and when she got down, she was like, oh, can I just lay against you? And can we just be okay? Like, yeah. And you can have this food, which I think she actually ate some at one point.
She might have. I can't remember.
It's kind of cathartic, like, oh.
Yeah.
I honestly felt like it was a little bit of a breakthrough. Not like, oh, everything's going to be perfect from here on, but it was like, okay, we actually, we approach a training session with any dog. What do I want the dog to learn in this training session? What do I want them not to learn? Because there's options, right? The dog could, if I fight back against the leash, if I just take the ball, right, when it's on the ground or in your hand or under your arm or whatever, I can just take it, and that's all I wanted anyway. So that's what I learned in this training session. Those things would not be good, right? We were also talking about this thing that happens with some dogs where you're holding food to do a food lure. They really, really want it, but they will not take it from you. And so they like knock it out of your hand and then dive on it on the ground. But you'll never get them to lure for a piece of food because they're like, they have this defiant issue with, okay, if I eat this from you, I'm admitting that you're the boss.
Well, that was the initial theory talk that brought this up.
Right.
Which is, kind of full circle.
Yeah.
Which I find fascinating. And that was my whole question is, why and how do we know that?
Well, and that's again back to full circle. It's like, I'm not set that I have to label that behavior as dominance per se.
Yeah.
But if I see other areas from a dog that, okay,
the whole picture, like you said.
Dominance doesn't mean what a lot of people think. Dominance doesn't mean the dog thinks it's in charge of you. Doesn't think that it is the boss, that it's the alpha. Dominance is an agreement. And dogs with each other work out this agreement, and they work it out with their humans of who has the rights to the stuff the dog wants, and that's behaviors that they want to perform, and that is rewards that they want. Rewards is a bad word because it has meanings in this scenario that I don't intend. Paul, hey, Platz. Is he English or German? I can't remember.
Lots.
9. Yeah. Sees a dog in the distance and he's got to engage. He's getting a little lip curl action.
Good. That's all right. We'll condition him right here.
Yeah.
Talk.
Yeah. Perfect. And you might need to be a little closer to him to facilitate that. Okay, so I don't necessarily care to call this dominance, although I think there is a vein of dominance in that the dog feels entitled to the particular behaviors that it wants to perform and the ones it doesn't, and it feels that it is in charge of those behaviors and so therefore is resisting training in those behaviors.
And where does that come from? How much of that is the nature versus nurture argument? Because then that brings in a whole other layer of what can we fix and what can't we fix.
Well, that's a good question, and I'm gonna say I don't necessarily have an answer for that question.
Well, because we don't totally know.
We don't, and there are definitely dogs where.
It's all right.
We don't necessarily know, and it doesn't really matter whether it's genetic or behavioral, because even genetic predispositions are not things that we can't train a dog through. Does that make sense? Like,
lots.
Like,
Good.
just because a dog has a predisposition to want to retrieve doesn't mean we can't teach it impulse control.
Exactly.
Right? It's like we just work within the construct that the genetics give us. So, like, it's like, there's stuff flying around, and this dog has a predisposition to go grab it when it hits the ground. That's great. That doesn't mean that you can't also teach them to heel and ignore it and take those likely behaviors as reinforcers when you allow them in that construct of impulse control. Yeah. And so it's a very similar. It's just this dog's predisposition at this point is to not do stuff, right? Yeah. when there's the context. So one of the things I was mentioning is I think a lot of times trainers are too committed to the operant learning paradigm. Is that the right word? Structure, the operant conditioning structure of training, which is by operant conditioning I mean we present the dog with a choice: do this behavior or don't do this behavior, get this reinforcer or don't get this reinforcer, or get this correction or don't get this correction. And the dog chooses to do or not do a certain behavior, maybe a behavior they're very predisposed to doing, and if they choose not to do that behavior, they get a better outcome than if they did. And that's a model of training. It works in the range of, like, okay, if we took like maybe 95% of dogs from the middle of that spectrum of normal behavior, it works just fine. You get the outliers, and maybe it's harder, and I think we're probably in outlier territory.
Definitely.
But the point of saying that is, in general, I think people operate in that mode more than is necessarily productive, where when you think of classical conditioning and operant conditioning are two parts of how dogs learn and behave, and people too, okay? We think of behavior sometimes as trainers, in really specific terms, like, I want the dog to do a downstay, and so I'm going to reinforce it. And if the dog chooses to not do the downstay, I'm going to non-reinforce or correct to get more downstay. Okay. So that's operant conditioning, applying reinforcement in very discrete little momentary changes to get the behavior we want more. It's not wrong. But shifting more towards classical conditioning would be like, what was the total picture of how the dog perceived the whole training session? Was it a net positive? Was it a reason to increase their arousal level or decrease their arousal level? And we condition those arousal levels based on the quality and frequency and type of rewards, because those rewards and reinforcers have chemical consequences in the dog's bloodstream. And I'm not talking about just reward reinforcers, but also pressure and punishment as corrections and reinforcers, punishments. Those things have chemical consequences too. And so if the dog's take on a training session is, well, that was stressful, does that necessarily mean the dog won't perform the behaviors we want? I would say no, but it might change the arousal level quite a bit. He's doing a head tilt.
He's listening to you.
It might change the arousal level quite a bit, but think of it like this. Think of a couple stressful things that I don't enjoy all of them, but maybe you do, and people I think watching this could definitely relate to. Roller coasters are stressful.
Oh, we love roller coasters.
But roller coasters make people excited, and they get back in line and do them again. That's what for a dog, that's what we call a very reliable behavior. They wait. If you as a person would wait in line for half an hour to an hour in the sun at a theme park or something in order to have this experience again. And when I've gone to theme parks, you have people, they get out of the ride and they go get right back in the same line to do it again because it was great. And they wait in that blistering sun for another hour sometimes, right?
99-degree California weather.
Right, or Florida or
Idaho.
Or whatever. Yeah, whatever. So we would call that an extremely reliable behavior if a dog did the same thing, right? And that same experience for the people had all the things that chemically we would think would be stress with some form of probably a dopamine euphoric sort of experience mixed in, and oftentimes in this construct of it was safe enough that the stress wasn't existential. It wasn't like we're gonna actually die most of the time. That's Thea. Thea, quiet. Edit incoming. So, you think of this idea of the amusement park as like, it was there was adrenaline, there was dopamine, you're with your friends maybe, and so there's a social bonding through that struggle, right? And this is actually something that you experience in dog training a lot. It's like you and your dog get into a situation, the dog is frustrated or scared by it, and with the right recipe going in, you come through that training experience bonded, and you have made the behaviors that happened to produce the result in that experience, you've made those things much more reliable. This is protection work definitely fits the bill.
Exactly.
But definitely working with dogs in behavior modification and aggression, things like that, can absolutely have this aspect to it, where we, like the way that I go about it when I have a dog who has a aggression issue, we create a game with stand-ins for the things that would cause them aggression, or cause them to aggress would be a better way to say that, a trigger. And I want to preserve a tiny little aspect of the fear of that trigger. Like usually I'm talking about a stuffed dog.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So we have a dog with dog aggression. Okay. We teach you behaviors with no stuffed dogs around. We heavily reinforce those things. Maybe we have to do that at home because they're stressed when they go to a new place like here and they can't do it. And then we come into the situation where we go, hey, look, that thing you're stressed by, it's over there, it's super sedate. And they look at it and they go, that's a freaking stuffed dog, dude.
Yeah.
And I go, yeah, but you felt it for a second, right? No.
None. Lots.
Like Falk is kind of feeling right now.
Lots.
Hey.
Yeah.
Keep the track of your leash.
It's under my foot.
That's Josiah.
It's a friend. Friend in a funny helmet.
Getting his bike.
Good.
So you think of it like, okay, I create this game with a stand-in. It's a game piece. The dog figures out, hopefully, that it's a game piece and it's not the real thing, because we don't want them at this level of stress that they would be if that was bulk. We don't want them at the level of stress they would be at if it was real. Favor and straighten out the leash clip on his collar. See how it's twisted? If he decides to pop, I don't want it to break. Just make sure you have a good hold on it if you mess with it too much. So we set up that scenario. We show the dog, hey, we're going to play this game. That's a game piece, and the dog starts to go, oh, it's kind of like being on a roller coaster. It's safe enough that I'm sure we're going to come through this okay. And we start to change their thought process about something that looks just like that, which is a real dog, and then after a few repetitions of it, when they've waited in line, right, for this roller coaster, and they've had this bonding experience with their handler of, hey, we accomplished that, it was fine. Mm-hmm. Hey Joe, would you ride out there for me? This dog's struggling with you. Thanks, buddy.
Yes.
And eventually we bring the real dog back in, and they go, oh, this was just like the roller coaster. I don't feel, yes. I've kind of been reconditioned to this process by this version that was easy, and now this one's more challenging, yes. But it feels like it did when I started with the stand-in present, and now I can function with this real dog, and then we go through that same process again with the real dog, and good. The dog accepts it, and we don't have the threshold problem that we had before. Yeah. And so it's not that different when we're talking about, I think, this doodle dog, and but what we have to do is bring the good feeling as much as possible, and worry a little bit less about the specific behaviors, but at the same time we want to manage the arousal, because she gets so aroused in that sort of zoomy mode that we don't want to reinforce those behaviors. Then they're self-reinforcing. You know, the spazzing out rear end tuck poodle zoomies. You know what I'm talking about?
The tuck butt run.
Yeah, the tuck butt run, which she's completely ignoring the leash. She's ignoring verbal command, and she's bouncing off the end of the leash. Those are the things we want to avoid. Yeah. But we want to bring her arousal level up to a point where we can at least get baseline.
Exactly.
Behavior, and she feels good, because we want to condition training to feel good.
Exactly.
So trying to spend more time in that classical conditioning mode, where, you know, I was talking to Kim about this, and we were talking about, do we, you know, when we have a dog who's doing this kind of stuff, are we more concerned about creating the relationship we would want this dog to have if she was our dog, or are we more concerned about behavior?
Exactly.
Yeah, Falk. Yep. Are we more concerned about the specific behaviors and prevention of specific unwanted behaviors, or are we more concerned about relationship? And I think with this dog, we're more concerned about behavior. This dog has a real opportunity to stay in the home that it's in, or if we can't make a change for this dog, potentially it doesn't stay in the home that it's in because it's not safe for the owner. So that's our duty to the client, is to make a real difference in the dog's behavior so that it can stay in the home. Because she's a lovely dog.
She's a good girl.
She's a lovely dog. She just has this.
Even in the outdoor kennel, when she's in her own space, she's a way different dog than when she's out in the open. You have a different animal, especially in the home. I don't think she would look.
Oh, in the house, she's great.
Exactly.
She's fantastic in the house.
Mm-hmm.
She's in the house with 4 other dogs, and her instincts and her responses to the other dogs are great. She listens. She's socially sensitive to your tone, and she's not the kind of dog who needs constant reinforcers to bring her attention back to the right behavior. Example, right? He's like, could I have another reinforcer, please? I'm doing the right thing. And you could do it, right? Because this is, we're concerned about the behavior, right? And getting the right behavior and getting the right reinforcers at the right times, and kind of the conditioning factor that the reward's providing us. Yeah. This other dog, she doesn't accept the reinforcers nearly as much.
Doesn't mean much to her.
It doesn't have the meaning. And, you know, back to the idea of dominance, we were talking about this version of this kind of problem, which isn't necessarily this dog, but where the dog acts like it really, really wants the reward, and can get really, really frustrated about you telling it has to do something to receive the reward. And at the same time, when you're doing like a food lure, you know, let's say in healing or luring just onto place or something, and the dog will, like we've even practiced trying to get the food take to be correct, and the dog has a habit or a intense desire to do the behavior in this way where it knocks the food out of your hand with its nose, or even I've even had it where they get it in their mouth, they literally spit it out on the ground, take a breath, and then vigorously eat it off the ground. And it's I think it's kind of like a, without being too graphic, a middle finger at you, like,
yeah,
I really want this, I really don't want it from you.
Yeah, I'll do it, but I'll do it my way.
Yeah. And so when we talk about dominance in terms of, I talk about it like I did before, like an agreement between the dogs or the people of who's in charge of what behaviors we're doing. A dog who's doing this is saying, I'm still in charge, I'm not doing your behavior your way, but I really want this food because it's really good. And on 2 separate occasions in my career, I've had dogs that were kind of like that, who would knock the food out of your hand instead of take it from you. And I got hand bites from them at a point where I was like, no, you actually have to do the sit, or you have to put your feet on the place, or whatever the thing I was asking of them, and I wasn't reading the dog's frustration good enough and the dog's desire to not do the thing I wanted them to do. And they took it as a perfectly acceptable option to chomp down hard on my hand. And maybe even in both those situations, there was an aspect of the dog still had self-control, that I still have a hand.
Yeah.
And I didn't draw back a mangled set of fingers, but the bites were hard.
Yeah.
They weren't
they meant something.
They weren't, I'm putting my mouth on you and showing you I'm in charge. They were, I'm going to grab down hard. And I think in both cases they were dogs who had more power available to them than they used, but they were showing me with a level of bite pressure that was causing quite a bit of pain. And in both cases I had to extract my hand from the dog. They did not choose to let go.
Ugh.
But they also didn't break my fingers and break the skin in either case.
Yeah.
They were like, one of them got my thumbnail and my thumb, and it was a hard bite, and when I got my finger out of his mouth, my thumbnail was dented and white. It was, and it bruised. And that was the hardness of the bite. The other one was a full hand sort of a snap. One was a German Shepherd, and he ended up being a great dog, and that was like in the first couple of days of his work. And I was probably pushing him too hard, because it's like that old, you have a superstar in front of you and you know it, and you think Sherman, right? For those who don't know, Allie's German Shepherd, working line German Shepherd, superstar dog, and you're like, oh, I can hit the gas, right? And I hadn't established the relationship with the dog. He didn't know the rules, and it was like putting a 16-year-old kid, and putting myself in that position, behind the wheel of 1,000 horsepower sports car, and with high octane gas and no limits, and
you can do it.
And you stomp on the gas because it's fun, and I got bit.
Yeah.
The other one was a severe resource guarding case, and there was another component to that one, but it was very much, I was expecting him to do something with, and he was frustrated, and it was a compounding of different triggers that he had. And Kim walked on the field. I was kind of over this direction. Kim walked out here with another dog, and he responded in that moment of, oh, there's another dog. That, I think, just lowered his inhibition to bite just enough, because he is a resource guarding dog, and he's like, this is my resource as a dog. It's an excuse. I'm going to take it. And he chomped my hand, and he was the fingernail one.
Yeah.
But he was like just a random mixed breed dog that we were training. Not a dog that was, it wasn't my fault for like hitting the gas pedal. I was not reading the dog's frustration good enough.
Yeah.
It was so in both cases they're my fault. Something you have to, dogs don't just bite because they're defensive.
There's a reason they're defensive.
Well, and
or a reason they're scared, or a reason they're guarding, or
but in both of those cases, those dogs were not, there was no defensiveness as a component. They were both frustrated.
Yeah. That was the choice they made.
And they made the choice to try and take what they wanted. They were impulse control problems, not defensiveness. Dogs will definitely bite you if they're scared of you and they think you're going to harm them, and that's their option. And some dogs will reach that threshold for no good reason.
Yeah.
But both of those, like I tend to, like, if I'm looking at a dog and I can see their body language, like, oh, that dog's being defensive and they're ready to bite. I'm not pushing that dog, right?
Yeah.
It's the first scenario I gave you was like, oh, I can hit the gas pedal with this dog because this dog's a freaking superstar. He's motivated. He wants what I've got. And we can just go to town. And he's like, well, I don't know the rules here.
Yeah.
And I'm frustrated because you're not just giving up the food. And the other one was like not defensive at all. He was a lot actually more like the doodle we've been talking about. I haven't been saying her name on purpose. He was more like her in the way that he behaved. He was much more shut down. But he was a resource guarder and was food motivated. But he didn't want to work for food. He had an expectation, and resource guarding and dominance are often closely tied together. It's this expectation of entitlement, and so and he lived in a house with another dog, and he felt he was entitled to the food, the water, the people, and their attention, going through the doors, and we also trained the other dog in his home like a year apart from this, and the other dog went from fearful, reactive to obedient superstar. Awesome dog. Was a mastiff breed. And then this dog was in the home from that point on. And I think they came together around that time that the first dog we trained came home from training. And this dog was like rescue, street dog, mixed breed, fighting for its survival in its early formative age. And then doesn't matter if you're 4 times his size, he's gonna kill you if you try to take his stuff. And he'd bite the people. He'd bit the lady of the house in that household because she came into the room where his empty food bowl or water dish was. Not even focused on that.
Guard, just the bowls.
Just the presence of it. Not even the person going towards those things. Yeah. And so you think of like, okay, resource guarding in that aspect. If you think of dominance as the belief of or the agreement between the animals of who has got the good stuff.
The dusty.
It's like the bottom of the Sour Patch Kids.
It is. It's the flavors.
But it's a liver Patch Kids.
Yum.
Right?
Gross.
It's that good stuff, buddy. Such a good boy. So that was a roundabout way to talk about dominance.
Yeah.
I don't mind a dog who feels a little dominant.
Yeah.
I honestly don't. I think in general, dogs that are just absolute pushovers with people or with other dogs aren't the dogs that I'm attracted to working with as much. I like the dogs who are a little bit more headstrong.
Well, that's what I think, especially in a sport setting. You want a dog that's going to lean in when it gets tough. You want them to have the grit.
Dog who pushes back against pressure, right?
Exactly.
And if the dog's a little bit of an active stressor and that pressure creates more likelihood to do stuff, and you can maintain motivation for reinforcers through that, then it tends to work, right? It's these ones where you take all of that and you go, except these things are opposite. It doesn't want the reinforcers anymore, and there's zero likelihood to do stuff, right? And then it's like, oh, well, this isn't fun at all. So that's all I had to say. I don't necessarily have all the answers. It's always a little bit experimental.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, are we doing the dog justice on a daily basis by trying, by applying the things that we know, and working the dog through their challenges? Yeah. And it's like some of these challenges that we see in this setting, the owner doesn't see at home.
Good.
Right? Because at home they see that dog who's in the house, their sweetheart, on the leash with the tools that they've used, harnesses and flat collars and things, dogs just pulling them around. They're not seeing the shutdown from use of a slip lead or from a prong collar. Yeah. They're seeing dragging behavior, and so like the active version, like a sled dog, and the zoomy version. And so if we teach the owner good technique on the leash and how to get the dog to be less dangerous,
then we're getting somewhere.
We are getting somewhere. That's kind of the point.
Exactly.
It's like, if you get you get this superstar working line German Shepherd or Belgian Malinois in here, and it's like, oh man, I can teach this dog to do 50 different things well, and the leash work takes like 5 minutes because they want what I've got so bad, and they're sensitive to pressure, and they move with pressure when I move them with good technique, and it's like, oh, that part of the work took no time at all.
Yeah.
That's great, but I would say 95% of people who get that version of a dog don't need a professional trainer. And maybe not more than a group obedience class, and they get the concepts, and they're off to the races because that dog's a superstar.
Yeah.
It's the people who either treat that superstar dog, potential superstar dog, like dogs that are at the other end of the pet spectrum.
Yeah. Good.
That suppress more.
Free.
Whoops.
He says, I'll free myself.
Yeah, dogs that suppress more, and then they have an active stressor. They have this dog who's super motivated, and they're trying to punish away the dog's desire to get rewarded.
Yeah.
Or to reward itself, instead of accessing it.
Exactly.
And so those kind of people a lot of times end up at a professional trainer, and then the people with dogs who shut down so hard that they can't figure out what this dog's do. In that sort of sweet spot, top 75% of motivated dogs, but not the very top.
Yeah.
Right? Those people a lot of times don't end up here. It's sad because those are the people that are the most fun.
Exactly.
Or the dogs that are the most fun,
awesome.
Because they're easy. Falk, here. Falk, here. You got your foot tangled up in the leash. Oh, you're gonna go potty on my stuff over there? Yeah. Would you take him to the potty area real quick? We'll cut this off here.
Come on, Paul.